The mathematics of death were about to be calculated in lead and steel. German soldiers crouched in frozen positions along the Infantry Ridge. December cold bit through their uniforms. 200,000 Wehrmacht troops prepared for their final great gamble. The Battle of the Bulge was beginning. These hardened veterans believed they understood their enemy. American soldiers were soft. They relied on machines instead of fighting spirit. Material wealth had made them weak. Within hours, rifle fire would shatter these assumptions. The sound would be different from anything German soldiers had experienced. Continuous, devastating, relentless. Each American rifleman carried a secret weapon. General George S. Patton would later call it the greatest battle implement ever devised. The M1 Garand semi-automatic rifle. German forces had no idea what was coming. Their Carabiner 98K rifles were relics from another war. The same basic design their fathers had carried in 1918. After each shot came the ritual of death. Lift the bolt. Pull it back. Push it forward. Lock it down. 15 aimed rounds per minute. That was the maximum for an expert marksman. Every German squad was built around one machine gun. The MG-42 could fire 1,200 rounds per minute. Riflemen existed to protect and feed that machine gun. This doctrine had conquered Europe, from Warsaw to Paris to the gates of Moscow. But the Americans had rewritten the rules completely. Every American soldier carried 8 rounds of instant death. Pull the trigger 8 times. No bolt manipulation, no pause, no mercy. 3 seconds to reload with a fresh clip. Then 8 more rounds as fast as fingers could move. The mathematics were staggering. German squads had 1 machine gun and 9 rifles. American squads had 1 machine gun, 1 automatic rifle, and 11 semi-automatic rifles. The firepower disparity was overwhelming. Reports had come from North Africa in 1943. German officers couldn't believe what they were seeing. American forces appeared to have semi-automatic rifles everywhere. The High Command dismissed these reports as impossible. Semi-automatic rifles in such quantities defied German understanding of production. They suggested confusion with Thompson submachine guns. Their industrial experts declared such manufacturing capacity beyond American capabilities. They were catastrophically wrong. Springfield Armory and Winchester were producing over 4,000 M1 Garands every single day by February 1943. Over 3 million had already rolled off production lines. German industry couldn't produce experimental quantities of semi-automatic rifles despite slave labor and total mobilization. Captured German prisoners in Tunisia expressed disbelief at American supply figures. One report stated that American infantry units appeared to possess semi-automatic weapons as standard equipment. This cannot be verified as it would require industrial capacity beyond reasonable estimation. The Germans simply couldn't comprehend what they were facing. D-Day brought the shocking reality home. June 6, 1944. Omaha Beach at 800 hours. The 352nd Infantry Division held positions overlooking Easy Red Sector. They watched American forces advance up the beaches. The volume of rifle fire was impossible. Continuous streams of bullets without pause for bolt manipulation. Fire volume exceeded their machine gun positions. German after-action reports described their confusion and terror. The hedgerow fighting that followed made everything clear. Engagement ranges rarely exceeded 100 meters. German long-range marksmanship doctrine became irrelevant. Volume of accurate fire delivered quickly was all that mattered. American rifle squads generated fire equivalent to German machine gun positions. Conventional suppression tactics proved ineffective against semi-automatic rifle-equipped units. This acknowledgement appeared in captured training documents from July 1944. German ordnance officers examined captured M1 Garands with amazement. The gas-operated system used expanding gases from fired cartridges to cycle the action automatically. The en-bloc clip system allowed reloading in seconds. Most remarkably, the rifles were manufactured to tolerances German industry couldn't match in mass production. A Wehrmacht technical intelligence report from August 1944 stated that the M1 rifle demonstrated mass production techniques they could not replicate. Components showed precise tolerances maintained across thousands of examples. Complete interchangeability of parts was achieved. Any component from one rifle functioned perfectly in another. The German G43 was their desperate answer to the M1 Garand. Production realities told the story of German failure. Every American infantryman carried an M1. The G43 was issued primarily to snipers and specialists. Total verified German production reached 402,713 rifles throughout the entire war. American M1 production exceeded 5.4 million. The disparity was crushing. The Battle of the Bulge demonstrated firepower differences at their most devastating. German forces achieved complete tactical surprise. They attacked with overwhelming numerical superiority in many sectors. Yet American small units held their positions through superior firepower alone. Theoretically outnumbered and surrounded, they survived by outshooting their enemies. December 17, 1944. Elsenborn Ridge. Combat interviews conducted immediately after battle recorded the experience of the 99th Infantry Division. Outnumbered 3-1 in some sectors, they held their lines through volume of rifle fire. One infantry sergeant reported they just kept firing. 8 rounds. Reload. 8 more rounds. The Germans couldn't advance through that wall of lead. German casualties in the first week exceeded all planning estimates. A captured operations order from the 12th SS Panzer Division noted that American small arms fire prevented movement even with numerical superiority. Each enemy position had to be treated as an automatic weapon emplacement. The numbers told an undeniable story by December 1944. American factories had produced over 4 million M1 Garands. Springfield Armory achieved peak production in January 1944. An astounding 122,000 rifles that month, 3936 per day, 164 rifles every hour of round-the-clock production. The Springfield Armory workforce demonstrated American mobilization. By June 1943, women comprised 43% of workers, 5210 women among 12,095 total employees. These workers had no prior manufacturing experience, yet they were producing weapons that exceeded German quality standards. Winchester repeating arms contributed 513,880 rifles to the war effort. International Harvester traditionally manufactured farming equipment. They successfully converted to produce 337,623 M1 Garands. Harrington and Richardson added 428,600 rifles during and after the war. This distributed production meant no single bombing raid could disrupt American rifle manufacturing. The M1 Garand fundamentally changed infantry tactics. American squads could conduct marching fire assaults, advancing while maintaining continuous fire superiority. Official U.S. Army training films from 1943 show the technique: soldiers advancing in bounds. Each man capable of delivering 8 aimed shots while moving. German tactical doctrine assumed bolt-action rifles for fire and movement. Their calculations for suppressive fire presumed rates of fire that Americans exceeded by a factor of 3. Ammunition consumption estimates were completely wrong. U.S. Army Field Manual 7-10 built entire tactical concepts around semi-automatic firepower. The semi-automatic M1 rifle provides the foundation of infantry firepower. All tactical movements assume sustained fire capability of the rifle squad. Semi-automatic rifles were only effective with adequate ammunition supply. American industry achieved remarkable scales of production. Lake City Army Ammunition Plant in Missouri covered 3,900 acres. It produced billions of rounds during the war years. Total ammunition output reached 7 billion rounds, sufficient to maintain unprecedented volumes of fire. German ammunition allocation typically provided 60 rounds per rifleman for offensive operations. American soldiers carried 80 rounds in en-bloc clips as basic load. Unlimited resupply was available from vast logistics networks. January 1945 brought bitter cold as American forces counterattacked. Winter conditions should have favored defenders. Instead, they demonstrated another M1 advantage. Cold weather severely affected bolt-action rifle operation. Frozen hands struggled with bolt manipulation. Oil thickened, making actions stiff. The M1 Garand required only trigger pulls. It operated even with heavy winter gloves. En-bloc clips could be loaded quickly with numb fingers. German soldiers had to load individual rounds into their Kar 98K magazines. U.S. Army medical records from the Battle of the Bulge noted significantly lower frostbite casualties among American riflemen. This was partly attributed to less exposure during reloading and firing. March 1945 arrived as American forces prepared to cross the Rhine. German defenders faced impossible mathematics. A Wehrmacht planning document captured at Remagen calculated defensive requirements based on traditional firepower ratios. It assumed one defender could engage 3 attackers, standard military doctrine since Napoleon. But this calculation presumed equal rates of fire. With M1 Garands, American attackers could generate 3 times the fire rate of German defenders. Traditional mathematics of defense collapsed completely. The Rhine crossings succeeded with lower casualties than planners anticipated. This was largely due to overwhelming small arms fire, suppressing German positions. The M1 Garand story was inseparable from American industrial mobilization. Springfield Armory in Massachusetts transformed from modest government arsenal to massive production facility. The main production building stretched over a mile in length. Each rifle passed through 1,000 different operations. Specialized machines performed each step. Production reached extraordinary efficiency. In 1940, producing one M1 Garand required 117 man-hours. By 1943, this dropped to 75 man-hours. By 1945, Springfield Armory could complete a rifle with just 31 man-hours of labor. Cost dropped from $83 at the war's beginning to only $31 per rifle by 1945. The workforce transformation was remarkable. Women workers rose from 20% in June 1942 to 43% a year later. These workers trained in weeks rather than years. They operated specialized machinery that ensured perfect parts interchangeability. German craftsmen couldn't achieve this despite years of training. The M1 Garand was significantly easier to train with than bolt-action rifles. U.S. Army training records show recruits achieved basic proficiency in 2 weeks. Bolt-action expertise required a full month. The semi-automatic action was forgiving of imperfect technique. Nervous soldiers could still deliver effective fire. Fort Benning, Georgia, revolutionized infantry training around the M1 Garand. Training reports from 1943 showed dramatic improvements in recruit qualification scores. The percentage of recruits qualifying as expert increased by 40%. The Italian campaign demonstrated M1 superiority even before D-Day. Monte Cassino, from January to May 1944. The 34th, 36th, and 45th Infantry Divisions engaged elite German paratroopers. Mountain warfare traditionally favored bolt-action rifles due to long-range precision requirements. Instead, American forces found that volume of fire mattered more than precision. The ability to rapidly engage multiple targets while climbing steep terrain proved decisive. These divisions were fully equipped with M1 Garands as standard equipment. German attempts to match the M1 Garand failed completely. The Gewehr 43 suffered from reliability problems and production limitations. Total verified production reached only 402,713 rifles, less than 10% of American M1 production. The G43 required extensive hand-fitting during assembly. Quality control proved impossible under late-war conditions. Each rifle needed specialized maintenance by trained armorers. When they malfunctioned, which was frequent, they became expensive clubs. Wehrmacht technical assessments consistently rated the G43 inferior to the M1 Garand in reliability, accuracy, and ease of maintenance. German soldiers would use captured M1 Garands in preference to their own semi-automatic rifles when possible. This occurred despite regulations forbidding use of enemy weapons. Reports from the Pacific Theater provided German staff officers additional evidence of American firepower superiority. Japanese forces using tactics similar to German doctrine were being systematically destroyed. Japanese soldiers carried bolt-action Arisaka rifles. M1 Garand-equipped American forces were overwhelming fanatical defenders in the most difficult terrain. The Battle of Iwo Jima occurred from February to March 1945. This happened simultaneously with the Rhine crossings. American soldiers defeated fanatical defenders through superior firepower at the individual level. These reports reinforced the hopelessness of the German situation when they reached commanders through neutral sources. Post-war interviews conducted by the U.S. Army Center of Military History provide crucial testimony. SLA marshals' combat interviews were conducted immediately after engagements. They consistently recorded German prisoners expressing shock at American rifle capabilities. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring commanded German forces in Italy. He wrote in his post-war memoirs that the American infantrymen possessed a firepower advantage they could never overcome. Their tactical superiority meant nothing when each enemy soldier could fire 8 rounds to their 1. General Hasso von Manteuffel commanded during the Battle of the Bulge. He testified during interrogation that the American semi-automatic rifle gave their infantry a decisive advantage. They could not generate sufficient suppressive fire with bolt-action rifles to enable movement. Final production numbers tell the complete story of American industrial superiority. Springfield Armory produced 488,669 M1 Garands. Winchester contributed 513,880 rifles. International Harvester added 337,623. Harrington and Richardson manufactured 428,600. Total production reached 5,168,772 rifles. German semi-automatic production of all variants totaled 400,713. The ratio was 13.6 to 1 in America's favor. Peak production rates demonstrated the disparity. Springfield Armory produced 3936 M1 Garands per day in January 1944. All German factories combined produced approximately 300 semi-automatic rifles per day. Supporting millions of M1 Garands required vast logistical systems. By 1945, American supply lines delivered 20 million rounds of ammunition daily to European forces. Sufficient spare parts maintained 3 million rifles. Complete overhaul capability existed at depot level. German logistics struggled to provide basic ammunition allowances. Standard allocation of 60 rounds per man for offensive operations compared poorly to American basic loads. Americans carried 80 rounds with unlimited resupply available. The economic dimension proved equally decisive. An M1 Garand cost the U.S. government $31 by 1945. The German G43 cost approximately 350 Reichsmarks, nearly 4 times as much when adjusted for purchasing power. Yet the M1 proved more reliable and easier to maintain. Cost efficiency extended throughout the supply chain. American factories used specialized machinery requiring massive initial investment. But per-unit costs dropped dramatically through economies of scale. German factories were repeatedly bombed and relocated. They never achieved comparable efficiency. The U.S. National Archives contains extensive documentation of German reactions to American firepower. Intelligence reports from interrogations consistently show German soldiers expressing amazement at American capabilities. One revealing document is a captured German training circular from December 1944. It attempted to prepare troops for facing American forces. Enemy riflemen must be considered as automatic weapon operators. Traditional fire and movement tactics must be adjusted accordingly. Expect continuous fire from all enemy positions. General George S. Patton's assessment proved prophetic. In his January 26, 1945, letter to Major General Levin H. Campbell, Jr., Chief of Ordnance, Patton declared the M1 rifle the greatest battle implement ever devised. This assessment came after observing the rifle's performance throughout the European campaign. Patton understood that wars were won not by individual heroism, but by superior firepower delivered by ordinary soldiers. His Third Army's rapid advances were possible partly because infantry units could generate overwhelming firepower without waiting for machine gun support. John C. Garand created more than a rifle. Born John Cantius Garand, he began development work at Springfield Armory in 1919. His design was finalized in 1932 and officially adopted January 9, 1936. It was optimized for mass production by semi-skilled workers. Garand assigned all patent rights to the U.S. government. He received no royalties despite his invention being produced in millions. His design philosophy emphasized simplicity, reliability, and manufacturability. These embodied American industrial principles. The M1 Garand represented American values translated into steel and wood. German military culture emphasized elite units with specialized weapons. American doctrine equipped every infantryman with the best available technology. Mass production made advanced capability universally available. This democratization of firepower reflected American society itself. The rifle that won the war was produced by housewives and teenagers. It was carried by citizen soldiers. It was supplied by an arsenal of democracy that viewed industrial capacity as military power. The M1 Garands' superiority had strategic implications beyond tactical firefights. American commanders could plan operations knowing their infantry possessed inherent firepower advantages. German commanders had to account for being outgunned at the most basic level. This affected everything from patrol operations to major offensives. American small units could operate independently. They were confident in their firepower superiority. German units required machine gun support for any offensive action. This limited tactical flexibility. Military historians consistently identify the M1 Garand as a decisive factor in American victory. Dr. John Ellis calculated that American infantry firepower superiority contributed to a 40% reduction in casualties. This compared to what bolt-action equipped forces would have suffered. The U.S. Army's official history notes that the semi-automatic rifle gave American infantry a margin of superiority clearly evident in every theater of war. Today, the M1 Garand remains iconic. It is displayed in museums worldwide as the weapon that won World War II. For German veterans who faced it, the rifle symbolized American industrial overwhelming of German military tradition. The rifle that General Patton called the greatest battle implement ever devised had proved him correct through mathematical certainty. It didn't just win firefights, it demonstrated that industrial democracy could outproduce and outgun totalitarian militarism. The M1 Garand's superiority was confirmed again in Korea from 1950 to 1953. When Communist forces launched human wave attacks, M1-equipped UN forces could generate sufficient firepower to break up assaults. These attacks would have overwhelmed bolt-action-equipped units. When West Germany rebuilt its military as the Bundeswehr in the 1950s, they immediately adopted semi-automatic rifles. They had learned the bitter lesson of 1944 to 1945. No modern military would ever again equip infantry primarily with bolt-action rifles. Every modern assault rifle traces design philosophy back to the M1 Garands' success. The principle of semi-automatic fire for every infantryman became universal military doctrine. The German Sturmgewehr 44 was developed in response to facing M1 Garands. It influenced the Soviet AK-47, which influenced all subsequent infantry weapons. The M1 Garand had not just won a war, it had revolutionized warfare itself. It proved that firepower at the individual level could be as decisive as artillery or armor. The M1 Garand embodied American production philosophy. It was designed for mass production, not artisan craft. Every component was engineered for manufacture by specialized machinery. Workers with minimal training could operate these machines. This approach dominated global manufacturing for decades after the war. German production philosophy emphasized skilled craftsmen producing limited quantities of complex weapons. American philosophy emphasized simplified designs produced in massive quantities by ordinary workers. The G-43's failure wasn't just technical, but philosophical. It was designed for an industrial system that couldn't support its production requirements. The M1 Garand represented more than military victory. It proved that democratic industrial society could defeat totalitarian militarism through superior organization and production. Every rifle was evidence that free workers in a democracy could outproduce slave labor in a dictatorship. German soldiers who faced M1 Garands learned this lesson in the most direct way possible, through incoming fire that never seemed to stop. They had been told they were superior warriors facing weak materialistic Americans. Instead, they discovered they were obsolete soldiers facing the future of warfare. When German forces surrendered in May 1945, they had been defeated not just militarily, but technologically and industrially. The M1 Garand stood as the symbol of this defeat, a mass-produced weapon that outperformed German craftsmanship, carried by citizen soldiers who outfought German professionals. The mathematics were inescapable. 5.4 million M1 Garands versus 402,713 German semi-automatic rifles. A 3-to-1 firepower advantage at the squad level. Production costs quartered through efficiency. Training time halved through design simplicity. Behind every statistic were human realities. American soldiers survived because their M1 Garand gave them firepower superiority. German soldiers died because their Kar 98K rifles left them outgunned in every engagement. The M1 Garand had been exactly what Patton declared, the greatest battle implement ever devised. It won its war not through elegance or precision, but through overwhelming firepower, delivered by millions of rifles produced by the arsenal of democracy. For German soldiers who faced it, the M1 Garand was more than a superior weapon. It was proof that their entire worldview was wrong. They had believed in racial superiority, military tradition, and warrior spirit. The M1 Garand proved that industrial capacity, democratic production, and citizen soldiers could destroy the most professional military force in the world. The rifle that won the war had done more than defeat an enemy. It demonstrated that free societies could organize, produce, and fight more effectively than totalitarian states. In 8-round clips and semi-automatic fire, American democracy had proved its superiority over German fascism. German soldiers were outraged by Patton's greatest battle implement. But their outrage was really recognition. Recognition that they had challenged the wrong enemy with the wrong weapons based on wrong assumptions. The M1 Garand taught them one firefight at a time. Modern war was won not by warriors, but by workers. Not by heroes, but by industry. Not by tradition, but by innovation. In the end, that was the M1 Garand's greatest victory, proving that democratic industrial might could overwhelm any enemy, no matter how professional, motivated, or ideologically committed. German soldiers who cursed the ping of ejecting Einblock clips were really cursing their failure to understand what they were fighting. Not just an army, but the arsenal of democracy itself. The M1 Garand remains in military museums and private collections worldwide. Still functional after 8 decades, still admired for its revolutionary design. It stands as testament to American ingenuity, industrial power, and the democratic principle that the best equipment should be available to every soldier, not just elites. For those who faced it in combat, the M1 Garand was unforgettable. The weapon that turned citizen soldiers into superior warriors through mechanical advantage. It proved that technology and production, not ideology and tradition, would determine the future of warfare. The greatest battle implement ever devised had earned its title through proven superiority on every battlefield where it served. Carried by soldiers who understood they held democracy's answer to tyranny in their hands.